You're listening to the Purpose Pursuit podcast with me, Hannah Miller. This episode is free to access. If you're looking for deeper connection, join the Purpose Pursuit Together, a guided community with bonus podcast episodes, monthly connection calls, quarterly workshops, and practical tools for purposeful work and life. Hi, welcome back everyone. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story and see what you resonate with in this little story that I read. Anna is knackered. It was a friend's birthday party last night, and even though she was absolutely exhausted after work, she did agree to show up at the restaurant at the time they said they would. After all, it's special to get together and to celebrate someone's special day, especially after her friend had had such a difficult year. Halfway through the evening, she notices an email from her boss asking if she could be on an early call the next day to take on a new project. There's no one else who could do as good a job, and she knows Anna has a lot on, but this is really important. Anna's lunch break the next day was also swallowed up by a colleague who really needed to talk to her through some relationship issues. And she'd promised her mum that she would do some research into a better rate for her car insurance. So she finished late again before remembering that she'd agreed to babysit for her sister that evening. No time for that exercise habit she's been trying to start. It's a mad rush to get to her sister's place. She doesn't have time to eat, and then she gets home late and collapses into bed, where she lies in bed for over half an hour feeling guilty that she didn't show up to a community meeting that she'd said she would and that she was going to volunteer for, or to do that flipping couch to 5k thing. Now, how does that sound to you? Is this anything that you resonate with? Do you have some stories from your own life that sound a bit like that? I'm pretty confident that loads of you do. And I definitely do. And so before I go any further, I think it's really important that I say that I am an absolute work in progress in this area, but there are some probably small changes that I've made that I feel that I can share with you. I am definitely not somebody who has got that under control. And I think if you're listening to that story from Anna, you'll have your own versions of not just a day that's been overextended, because we all have those, but day after day where you are holding too many things and feeling responsible for so many things. I'm not speaking to the over-boundaried people today. I'm not speaking to the people who need to perhaps put themselves out a little bit more. I'm speaking to the huge numbers of you that I work with who are very, very overextended. And so today's content is called How to Make Peace with Not Being Everything to Everyone. And it might be that you think, well, I am at peace with not being everything to everyone. I just seem to find myself having to be everything to everyone, and I don't know how to stop it. Or it might be that you're aware that, you are aware you're a bit of a people pleaser. I saw a funny thing on Instagram a while ago, and it said, so you say you're a people pleaser. Well, name 2 people that are pleased with you. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I'm not sure I can name 2 people that are pleased with me. And here I am doing my best to try and please people. So think about, as we begin this episode, all the different roles that you hold. I can't speak for you, but I'm a parent. I'm a daughter. I am a wife. I am a colleague. I'm a boss. I'm a friend. I'm a leader. I'm a trustee. I have been until very recently part-time caring. I'm a dog owner. That's another thing. I'm a business owner. I am all of those things, which all require of me to be connected to other individuals that I have responsibility to and for, to varying degrees. And I would want to be able to be things for those people and to do a good job. And so there is access for you and for me of lots of individuals to us, and you will have your own version of this, think about your own scenario. And we've picked up this sense of being needed in so many ways by so many people. And people rely or they look upon us. And somewhere along the way, we've decided that if someone's disappointed, then we must have done something wrong. And when I was thinking about today's episode, for me, that line is really, really important. I have somewhere internalized that other people's disappointment is my responsibility. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And we've got to work out the difference. the problem that we don't want to fall into is suddenly feeling like other people's feelings and other people's disappointment is never our responsibility. And we become so boundaried or so sort of, what do I need, that we aren't bothered anymore about what other people feel. And I'm really deeply concerned about that narrative. I'm really deeply concerned that some people are becoming so aware of, capacity that they are rigid and they're not willing to do that kind of stuff. But I don't think I'm talking to those people today. I'm talking about people who are recognizing that actually they have a lot of roles that they play. They feel a sense of responsibility, not only to do those roles well, but to carry other people's expectations of them, which are intentional or unintentional. Now, when you read Anna's story, is it Anna's friend's fault that it was her birthday and she invited her? Was it Anna's mum's fault to ask for help with the car insurance? Was it Anna's colleague's fault to say, I'm having a relational difficulty? I would say in none of those situations, any of those individuals have done anything wrong by asking for Anna's help. They care about her, they appreciate her, and she's somebody who's in their life. But if Anna wasn't able to do it that day or that time, is it Anna's responsibility to be unendingly available at every point, at any time? No, that's the difference. And trying to be everything to everyone is exhausting, invisible work. It's not just about the stuff we're doing, it's that feeling we have inside. And I'm not going to lie, I really, really struggle myself with this. I've always got on the go a list of people that I'm aware of, that I've said we're going to spend some time with, that I haven't got round to getting into the diary. And I have this ongoing list of people where I'm trying to go, right, well, where have we got a slot where we can make that happen? And honestly, what then happens is the little bit of downtime that we might have for me and my husband is taken up. We're doing a lovely thing to see a friend, but actually has been put into what's already a squeezed schedule. And I think some of us have to recognise the capacity that we have and the type of lifestyle we have. So for me and my husband, we've got older children, so I'm not in the early children phase, but we both have jobs that involve travel. So that means our working days can be really long. On top of that, my husband works very long hours. I have my own business. We have a big family. We have up until very recently had parents that we are caring for. I do still have my dad who is with us, but he's quite capable and needs me, but he doesn't need me to care for him at this stage. We have both volunteers in charity projects that we're involved with. We're both committed to our local church. I'm committed to my community. So when you start to add all of those things up, I have to recognise that some of my other capacity for other stuff is not available. And each of us needs to work out what our capacity is and what is too much for us. And it's also not a busy comparison game. Like for some people, I think I'd put my husband into this category. He has a bigger capacity than other people to carry more. This isn't a competition. It's not a competition that's better, but we need to know what those things are for us. But actually that's slightly different capacity to being everything to everyone. Those are two different things. You can be a high capacity person, but not feel that you are everything to everyone. And in fact, I'd probably say I struggle with that more than my husband does, even though he probably carries more than I do. And then what starts to build up, it creeps in, is this tiredness, a guilt, a loss of who we are and the things we want to do, and definitely some resentment. I definitely know when I'm stuck in that cycle too much, what then starts to happen is this little bit of resentment grows and grows and grows till we don't realise it anymore, but we're overextended and we're sick of it and we don't want to do anything anymore. And as I've said already, I'm a massive work in progress. You could be somebody who is just, if he sounds like you're often well-liked, capable, reliable, constantly overextended and saying yes without thinking. Maybe, for me, I can think of loads of times where I've said yes to something and thought afterwards, I really shouldn't have squeezed that into that. This is at personal cost to me, to a point that I am not sure I can function and cope. The reason I said I'm a work in progress is I am learning to stop and pause. I am learning to think about the impact, and I'm learning to think about, is this a real definite yes? I remember reading something once where it said, if this thing that you're being asked to do was tomorrow, if you imagine it's tomorrow, would you still be saying yes in the same way you are about something that somebody's asked of you in 2 months' time? And we have to think about it like that, because in 2 months' time, we're going to be just as busy as we were if it was tomorrow. And it isn't that, I would say that I'm a person without boundaries. I think it's just sometimes those boundaries were in the wrong place, or they weren't established in a way that they could be. Many of you listening will be sandwich generation people, meaning you've got children and you've got parents, let alone all the other things. And those are like your closest nucleus of responsibility. And that in and of itself is a lot to carry and to juggle. And it's so hard because by nature, we want to be relational, and belonging matters, and we're wired for it. We're not wired to be no and to be separate and to be bounded. That's not what humanity is. And if I can gently say that, I think as women, there is often a sort of socialized idea that we're there to be that everything to everyone in a higher expectation way, mothers or not. Now, interesting, this also nods to a bit of psychology. So there is something called self-determination theory, which says that all of us, every single human, needs three things. Whatever our life looks like, to thrive, we need autonomy, competence, and connection. Now, Daniel Pink calls it autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I like both of those versions. So autonomy is this idea of, I have some control over my life. And I get to do things without everything being run around everyone else. Competence is about doing things well. Mastery is about, these are the things I'm expert in. These are the things I want to be known for. Perhaps it's your personality, your skills, your experiences. And connection and purpose are around that deeper meaning, aren't they? They're about our relational connection. They're about our sense of meaning around life, that sense of purpose, that sense of why am I here? That is such an important human need. Just look at the data around how much people are exploring that idea. But this is the problem. When we are then trying to be everything to everyone, our autonomy goes. We lose that sense of control. And what happens is our competence then gets into this over-functioning space that we then, actually our competence will then drop. I know for me, I start making mistakes. I can't do things as well as I was. And then our belonging starts to feel conditional. Well, I'm only really accepted. I've only got connection because people expect these things of me. Am I really connected, or am I just connected because I am somebody who is all things to all people? I think, when I stop and thought about that, it really resonated with me. Where is my sense of autonomy going? Where is my competence moving into over-functioning? And where am I feeling where my belonging is actually just conditional on the fact I've said yes? And would these people still want to be in my life if I wasn't going to do those things? This is not about us being selfish. It's about where do we get these needs in balance, and how do we make sure that those things are still working? And perhaps a reflection for you to think about is your feelings around autonomy, mastery, and purpose, or autonomy, competence, and belonging. Use whichever language works best for you. Being everything to everyone is going to sacrifice our sense of autonomy. And for me, that is something I've really thought about in preparation for this. So making peace with this is about recognizing that peace is not being everything to everyone and everyone being happy with us. Peace is not nobody ever being disappointed with us. And one of the things I've really thought about in this is I am not always responsible for the fact somebody is disappointed. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I think peace comes from knowing what is mine to carry, what is mine and only mine to carry. Peace is knowing where I'm going to choose where my yes wholeheartedly goes. And it is tolerating and learning to tolerate that I might sometimes be misunderstood. You can be a dependable person without being endlessly available to every single person. And if you think about, for those of us who are wanting to live meaningful lives, even if you think about the most incredible, heroic individuals through history, every single one of them had limits, and every single one of them needed to sleep. Every single one of them needed space. Every single one of them needed reset, even with their own different categories. So here's a practical thing for you to consider, okay, as we come into land today. When you're thinking about this whole scenario, and I reckon I could do a deep dive episode into this we're talking about today, is when something happens and you've got a decision to make and you say no, ask yourself, whose disappointment is this? pause and ask that. Is this disappointment that someone's feeling because of an expectation I agreed to that I've not met? Or an expectation that I actually never signed up for? And I think this is so important in every kind of relationship. I am aware that I've carried so much disappointment having expectations of people that I've probably never articulated. And that's not necessarily fair. I'm also aware that there are times I've been disappointed because people have not signed up to basic expectations or things that are just being human. And that is a bit different. And on the flip side, if I say I can't do something and someone's disappointed, it's okay for them to be disappointed. They're allowed. And I'm okay to let them be disappointed. Especially if it's not somebody that I'm not directly responsible for. I'm not responsible for managing other people's disappointment. And it's also about, if I can't do that, what can I do, is another way of looking at it. The problem with all of this is that when we hit crisis point, we want to overhaul our whole life. And I want to look at my diary and go, right, I want to get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. An overhaul is quite difficult to do instantly. And you cannot just eliminate what you've got coming up in the current quarter ahead of you. That's already committed probably. So it's about thinking beyond there and thinking, what can I do? How can I practice this going forward? And one other thing I want to give you as a little bit of a thought around this is to think about the different people in your life. And I'm going to actually go through this process myself. And I want you to think about categorizing people. I don't mean in a hard category, but who are the people right now, and it may change, that are in your inner circle. So these can be your family, your very closest friends, and any other key relationships you have. These are people who you are responsible for to some level. There is a level of responsibility here. These are the people you will rearrange things for. Okay, sometimes you'll just rearrange. So if my son needs me, let's say he's at uni and something has happened and he needs me, I am going to rearrange my diary to be around for him. No way. No, it's not. Absolutely. There's no way I'm going to not do that. When my mum was in the final weeks of her life, I dropped everything, and that's inner circle, right? I can't do that for everybody who I care about. Then there are going to be people who are in that wider circle. So they're not your inner circle. Maybe this is the next layer of family, your community, your other friends, people that you really do want to show up for. But there's a bit more limit around how you're going to respond to these people. They can't have the same level of response as people who are in your inner circle. That doesn't mean you wouldn't sometimes completely show up for them, unexpectedly so. Because they really needed you. But you're using something to help you make different decisions. I'm sorry if you just heard my tummy rumble. It's nearly lunchtime at the time of recording. And then there are people you're just not responsible for. And these are people, guys, you should definitely not be rearranging everything around. Not regularly at all. It doesn't mean you don't care about these people. It's not your job to be the person who holds all of this. And can I just say that these things are not hard and fast. For example, we had a situation recently where somebody that my husband had met found themselves in the country at the beginning of an asylum process. And they are not in our inner circle, and they're not even really in our wider circle. But it was a moment that it was right to say, we're going to make some time for you. Like, that was right. So this is no way something where I'm saying, be ruthless about this. But I don't think I'm talking to people like that. I'm encouraging you to just see the difference. There are people I'm responsible for. There are people I can contribute towards. And there are people where I definitely need boundaries. And I think there's also importance to thinking here about people who are actually really quite draining of you. People who are capable of more, but you are the one doing the running and they don't. And so there definitely needs to be some boundary there as well. So I found it quite helpful to think about it like this. The people I'm genuinely responsible for, the people I care about and contribute to, and people that actually it's okay for me to say, I just can't do that. Like if a client wants me to do something next week and I can't, it is okay for me to say no. It's okay for them to be disappointed. Oftentimes, guys, there's a way around these things over and over and over again. So I want to encourage you today, think about those principles I've mentioned around peace. Peace is not about always getting it right. Peace is not about never extending ourselves. Peace is not about people being disappointed. It's about knowing who and what we're responsible for. It's about knowing our limits. And again, in every season, that's going to look different. Knowing when you need to pull back and when you can make space. Final practical thing is to look at your week and look at your month and think about the rhythm of how much you can do. So like when our children were little, we had a boundary. This is a really simple, practical example that one of the weekend nights, Friday or Saturday, we would always have it as a family unit. And that little boundary meant that one of our most responsible things, my inner circle, I was available for. In any stage of life, we can have those kind of boundaries. You could have that one night a week is your night to have a bath and read a book. That is a really fair boundary, and that you would cross that boundary only intentionally in emergency situations. Otherwise, it's in there. And there are times when we just have to throw it out because life happens. But having that there can act as a way for you to think, how much of this like grey area am I willing to tolerate? And where do I put some lines in for myself? I hope today's given you food for thought. I hope that stuff around autonomy and competence and connection helps you think. I hope the stuff around types of relationships helps you think. And I hope that stuff around peace and disappointment is also really helpful to you. I'd love to carry this conversation on further. And if you want to get involved in the Purpose Pursuit Together community, there'll be stuff in the show notes where we will probably unpack this in a lot more detail together. Bye for now.